Welcome to Small Business Celebration. We're continuing our series on small business sustainability. And our guest this week, well, imagine you've got the perfect business, the perfect restaurant, and you've got the perfect venue, and you're putting on the perfect events. The problem is you have your sewer system, suddenly it collapses. Not once, not twice, but every time you do an event for 6 months straight. How would you deal with that? Well, let's learn from this week's guest here on Small Business Celebration. This is Small Business Celebration. Welcome, where we're celebrating small businesses for big breakthroughs. Welcome to Small Business Celebration, and our guest this week is Chef Lino Gonzalez, the owner and the head chef of Chef Lino. Welcome to Small Business Celebration.
Thank you, Michael.
And for visionaries who don't know who are you, and what is it that you do?
Well, my name is Lino Gonzalez. I'm the chef here at Chef Lino Creates, and this is my kitchen and our family business.
And for visionaries who don't know, you mentioned we're in the kitchen.
Correct.
And where is this?
So we're right here in the middle of downtown, right next to the Fox Theater. And this is something we've been working on for a while and finally became a reality last November. So we built out this kitchen to take care of all of our catering needs.
But this isn't your first foray into the restaurant, because how young were you when you first started?
When I first started, I was 10 years old.
10?
10. And I started in my dad's kitchen. It was, you've probably heard of it, it's called Don Pepe's.
Okay, right,
Yeah,
Don Pepe's, yeah.
It was on Columbus Square Shopping Center, right next to McCarthy's Yogurt.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where it all began.
And you worked for him for what, 8 years or so?
For my dad, no, shoot, I was with him, for about 7, 8 years.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so.
And after that, you went to work for?
Well, actually, after that, I went to go work for Target.
Okay.
Yeah, I had my fill of the restaurant life, yes. So
I am done with the restaurant business.
I was done with the kitchen. Yeah, so I went to Target for maybe about a year.
Right.
And it just wasn't enough money.
Oh.
And I had met Mayor Brown, the owner of Cafe Med. Right before I stopped working at my dad's restaurant.
Right.
And he was like, if you ever need a job, come talk to me. So I got news that I was about to be a father, so needed to make more money. So I went to him for a part-time job. And after working with him, I would say maybe 3 or 4 months, he's like, how much are they paying you over there? And so we sat down and talked, and he goes, just come with me full time, and I'll take care of you. And at some point you'll manage the kitchen here, and spend about 15 years there full time.
15 years at Cafe Med, wow.
Yes. Yeah.
What prompted you to start your own business?
I always had that, they say you always have that itch. You want to know, because you're working and you're doing all these things for someone else, and you always feel like, I could do this for myself.
Right.
And first off, I didn't want to do a restaurant.
Right.
So when
you had enough of it when you were a kid.
Yeah. And then I went back for another 15 years, and then I said, this time I'm gonna do something different. So I always enjoyed working on cars. So my passion was always automobiles, working on them, owning them, anything. So I opened up a repair shop and a towing service.
Okay.
And didn't do good on that. So I always stayed with Cafe Med, though. I would always help with catering, did other things.
Right.
And when I met my fiance now, Frances, when we and her got together, she always wanted me to go back into food because she knew me before when I was at Cafe Med.
Right.
So I was like, no, I'm just done with it. And she was like, but you're so good at it. And I'm like, I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. So me and her tried a few ventures, and the most interesting one was we opened up this repair shop.
Right. Auto repair shop?
Yeah, it was a warehouse, and I did the repair shop in the back, and she was an ordained minister, so she would do weddings in the front. So we built out the front of the repair shop like a chapel, and the back was a repair shop. So when she was gonna marry people, she'd be like, hey, you need to be quiet for like 30 minutes. I just shut off all the compressors and, just sit back there while she was doing, her thing. And, it was nice to be able to work with her, and, everything we did together, we just incorporate each other in both business. She's a people person. So when she wasn't busy, she would help me talk to the clients and, get them processed and paid and
Sure.
turning in the cars. But it just wasn't enough. We just weren't making enough money to pay the bills. I had gone through a separation, so I still had child support and other things I was
Right.
taking care of. So it just was never enough money. And she's always been a believer in any crazy idea I have or do. But
Right.
she's like, let's do food. She's like, that's what you're good at. Let's do food. And I'm like, okay. I go, I don't want to do a restaurant though. I want to
Mm.
do just catering.
Oh.
And she goes, okay. So I find this restaurant in Pumpkin Center
Right.
that's for sale.
Right.
And it's not very expensive. The rent is ridiculously cheap, like $1,000. And I'm like, it's a bad area, but just for catering,
Who
who
cares?
cares? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we drive down there to Pumpkin Center, and right when we go in the area, she's never been in that area, and she's like, oh my God, where are we at? And I'm like, Pumpkin Center. So we pull up to this building, park right in the front, and it has a metal door,
Right.
bars on all the windows. And
Uh-huh.
I mean, the area looks much better now. It was pretty bad back then. And
Right.
I'm like, this is it. So I park it out the car, and I'm like looking through the windows, and I'm like, wow, it's not so bad. I go, if we do this and this, I'm talking to myself. I look back, she's still sitting in the car. So
She
like
was having none of
nothing.
it.
I go over there and she's on her phone. I'm like, hey, like, get down. Like, I'm looking in, this could actually be a nice restaurant. And she's like, no.
No.
She's like, you're crazy. She's like, nobody's gonna come out here. Nobody's gonna come out here.
Right.
I go, well, that's fine. I go, we don't need it as a restaurant. It's gonna just be my catering kitchen. I go, but get down and look. So she gets down and she looks through the windows and she's like, oh my gosh. She goes, this place is actually really nice. Because it's those old school, really Hispanic looking restaurants with a little hanging over roof. And,
Right.
it has a ton of character. So we go into it and we meet up with the owner of the building and the owner of the restaurant, and we make a deal. And we start, we have to have it repainted on the outside. We have to invest all this money that we weren't prepared to do.
Right.
So that's how it came together that I brought in my sister and then a month later my dad. So that's how we did Pumpkin Center, and we opened it up as a restaurant once she saw, and we had a line out the door.
Skipping ahead, you've gone through 5 restaurants
Yes.
during
On
this.
my fifth one. Yeah.
This is your 5th one. It's no secret that opening and running a restaurant,
Yeah.
is not an easy business. But on the other hand, what you've done at the Poorhouse is astounding.
Poorhouse is an interesting place.
How did you get that one? Because this is a place that it had a really rough reputation for a
Right.
long time, and the new owners came along and they knew you. But how did you help transform that?
So what happened with that, when my partners now, when they acquired the Poorhouse, it had they had cooks. It was a full running place.
Right.
So they came in, they cleaned up the bar, and when I went to go see it and I was talking to them, I was hoping they would ask me, "Hey, like, come in here with us," but they never said anything, and I was just kind of like hanging back, see how I did, and I would hear good things about it. I would
Right.
hear good things about the bar, but I never really would hear anything about the food.
Ah.
So I want to say they had it maybe for about a year when one of them finally reached out to me and said, "Hey, and he's so funny. He always makes a joke of this. He always says, "I'm gonna make you a deal you can't refuse.
Right.
No rent." He goes,
Wow.
"Yeah." He goes, "Just come in here. Of course, we're gonna split all the other bills,
Right.
but just no rent." And I was like, "Great!" Like I've been waiting for that because I wanted to be a part of that with them. And so we just went in there first just for lunch because it was during pandemic.
Right.
So they just needed to have some sort of food, and we still had the restaurant on Panama, and we're in there, and, we're doing things, and it was a rough building. It
Right.
needed, work everywhere.
Right. Right. Everything.
Yeah, so just got in there and started doing what we did, and man, it just took off like wildfire. With their influence to the bar, I mean, they did an amazing job,
Right.
turning that bar around, and we brought in our food, and it was just like they say, perfect combination, and people really seem to enjoy it.
And now, where we're sitting at now, we're right across the street from the Majestic Fox Theater in
Right.
downtown Bakersfield. Why did you pick this location and the banquet center?
So I've always liked downtown. I mean, besides all the all the things going on with downtown, the homeless problems and everything else. There's something about being, downtown. It just feels good to come here, to come to work, and besides that, the rent's really cheap.
Sure, right.
The rent's very affordable, and so when we came up with this, I had plans for this whole. It's almost like an L shape,
Right.
and when me and Francis spoke about it, I said it'd be nice to have everything right here: our commons, our kitchen, our event center, and then we're gonna open up in the future a deli and a bar right next door to the venue. So
Right.
with the rent and it's just everything right here. When I was doing catering out of the restaurant on Panama,
Right.
boy, it would take forever to get to different parts of town.
Sure.
Being here, we have 34 events. We just head in every different direction, and
You're
we're right
literally
there,
in the center of everything.
Yeah. So that was to me the biggest appeal of doing it here
Right.
was the location.
So why the banquet hall?
So I have to go back to that. So when we got Centro 18 downtown,
Right.
there was always struggles with that location because of the parking.
Right.
So and then the building itself had tons of problems with the electrical, plumbing, the roof. It was a nightmare for a lot of other reasons. But the number one thing we saw there was we turned it into an event center. So we started making more money, renting it out to people to have weddings there, celebrations of life, birthdays, anything. They
Right.
started booking out the whole place, and we started seeing, well, we're making more money off having these private events versus opening the door every day.
Right.
So when the plumbing collapsed in that building, and we were literally forced to move out of that building, we moved to the restaurant on Panama, and that was like half the size, if that.
Right.
So we lost a lot of our accounts that we had
Oh.
we had gained from Centro. So that's why I started looking at the venue.
And the banquet hall, the banquet center?
Yeah, I mean, it's a venue, event center,
Okay.
whatever you want to call it.
What kind of events do you specialize?
We've done political events, weddings. I mean, you name it. We've done anything. I mean,
Christmas parties?
Christmas parties, just basically. We've had birthday parties and there people bringing jumpers and
Right?
yeah. So it's basically it's set up so you can use it for anything you like.
And when you have an event in there, or a business comes in and wants to have an event there, what kinds of food do you serve and offer?
We basically cater to anything and everything. We've done Indian food, we've done Chinese food, of course Mexican food,
Right?
Italian. We could basically let us know let us know your vision and we'll make it happen.
If visionaries want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
They could contact us on our website at cheflinocreates.com or at info@cheflinocreates or at 661-885-8006.
And when we come back, we're going to talk about, with the rising food costs, the challenges in labor, supply chain issues, how do you change your menu to be able to accommodate all these challenges when we come back? And if you like Small Business Celebration, go ahead and like, subscribe, and notify, and we'll talk more about altering your menu to deal with the supply chain issues of the real world when we come right back. The winter season is rapidly approaching, but are the tires on your car or truck ready for wet weather? Bakersfield's best tire store, Cleroux Tire, has been serving families like yours for 80 years and installs and services the tires your family depends on when the wet weather comes. Give Cleroux Tire a call at 661-324-6069 and ask them about what tire works best for you and your budget. Call Cleroux Tire at 661-324-6069 or visit them at 530 East 21st Street in Bakersfield or at ClerouxTire.com today. The wet winter weather is rapidly approaching. Call Cleroux Tire at 661-324-6069 today. I'm here with Chef Lino Gonzalez, the chef with Chef Lino Creates, and our visionary question comes from Alba, who asks, with fewer employees in the kitchen, rising prices, and supply chain issues, how are you changing your menu to meet reality?
Well, right now, of course, is price shopping. You got to look for the best price possible without compromising quality. And that's the challenge.
And how do you do that? Because you've got what,
Oh
Cisco
yeah,
and all these others?
now here in town we have Restaurant Depot. They're pretty competitive. I
Right.
mean, even places like Costco carry really good quality meats. I shop there a lot too. And
Okay.
it takes a little bit of legwork. I mean, there's nothing easier than just putting in an order and have it dropped off at your at
Right.
your doorstep. But
Sure.
then when that bill comes in, you're like, wow. And I made when I was at Central, I made that mistake. We were really busy and I was just ordering and not paying attention to anything.
Right.
And then like, well, we're making all this money, but then here's
Here's the bill.
here's the
It's
bill
all
for
going out the
Cisco.
door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, so that was one time that was a really rude awakening. And then going through and checking pricing on things, I was like, wow, I'm overpaying on this. I'm overpaying on this. So you have to be very diligent on that sense because as soon as you turn your back, it just gets out of hand really fast. And the second thing I would say is really important is how you design your menu.
Okay.
I
How so?
mean, well, I mean, number one, you don't want to have too big of a menu.
Mm.
And number two, you don't want to try to cater to too large of a span. You got to decide, what are we? Are
Okay.
we, I wouldn't for say we're fine dining at the poorhouse, but we are. It is a really nice menu. I mean, you can get anywhere from lobster on there to tacos, but even our tacos, everything's made with high end products, so they're still
But you
nice.
learned this lesson the hard way.
The real hard one.
Well, what happened?
So when we were on Taft Highway, when we were at Pumpkin Center, when we moved to downtown, now we're downtown.
Right.
So I had the mindset where now I'm gonna have more of a fine dining restaurant.
Right.
But in my mind, I said I'm still gonna keep the classics.
Okay.
I'm gonna do steaks, pastas,
Tacos,
nice
burritos.
seafood, but I'm still gonna keep the tacos, burritos, nachos.
Right.
So my menu was from the cheapest plate was an order of nachos to filet and lobster.
Wow.
So what we learn, and, you don't see it while you're in it. You don't see it. You're just doing what you know how to do, and you're just doing it. And we were busy,
Right.
especially our first year. We were super busy, and by the time you come to the realization, I didn't even realize until I was in the next restaurant, and I'm looking at we're looking back. I'll talk about school real fast. I always hated history in school. I thought that was stupid. Why do we study history,
Oh,
right?
sure.
Right. But now,
Who cares
who
about
cares what
date?
happened in the past?
Right. Right.
But that's exactly what we had to do. We had to go back and see, okay, why did we
Right.
struggle? All this money's coming in, but but it's not growing in either direction in
Right.
the sense of our clientele, because we would have one table, which is fine. You have a group having beer and nachos, and right next to them we have another table having filet and lobster and $100 bottle of wine,
Right.
trying to enjoy a real quiet
They want to have a nice
dinner.
romantic
Right.
evening, and meanwhile, you
Intimate.
got this table of kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just yelling and having a great time. And they're both having a great time in their own way, but the
Right.
setting wasn't good for them to be right next to each other in
Right.
that sense. So we were doing, the numbers, but we'd get complaints from some of our clientele that things were too expensive.
Right.
And then we get complaints from other clientele that it was just too noisy or too,
Right.
too it just didn't work. And the menu was huge.
Right.
It was a huge menu. So my inventory in the kitchen was so big. And then if I didn't get rid of that, that filet mignon or that lobster, I wouldn't want the meat to get old. So I'd be cutting taco meat out of a filet mignon,
Oh.
or making lobster bits soup out of lobsters, or trying to figure out another way to burn them out to just
Right.
not lose the product.
Right.
So
And meanwhile, you're overpaying because nothing is
right.
moving, and
And then I had a huge, I had a huge labor because I had to have a lot of staff to handle prepping for this menu.
sure.
So it was an expensive lesson.
Right.
It was an
Right.
expensive lesson that they don't teach you. I mean, I never went to culinary school, but they don't teach you those things in culinary school. Because when I would get these culinary school interns, they would come in with with all their ideas
Right.
and all this process and procedure. I'm like, that doesn't apply here. Like, you need to go wash those dishes.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, so it was a really, really big learning experience, because when I left Cafe Med, I mean, that was already a really well established restaurant.
Right.
And it was basically, when I came in, I just helped it grow,
Right.
but it was already doing its thing. So
Right.
when I went to start from scratch on my own thing, it was quite the challenge.
It
Yeah.
was an eye opener.
Yeah, it was a big eye opener. And and we've been doing this for 9 years now on our own, and we're still learning things.
Right.
We're still learning things, and I think the most important thing is how fast you catch it.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure,
how
sure,
fast you
sure,
catch
sure.
it.
Right.
The other problem is when you're hands-on, like me and my wife, we're hands-on. I'm in the kitchen. She helps me work events.
Right.
She's in her office doing, the back end stuff. And so we're just so busy. Sometimes it just takes a while to figure out what we're doing wrong.
And then you have something happen you can't control.
Right.
You're in a space
Yeah.
and suddenly the plumbing
Right.
just completely collapses.
Right.
And for a restaurant, that's a health hazard. That's disastrous.
Right.
When something like that you can't control happens, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that was a really, really, really rough patch. Especially for Frances, my fiance. It was really hard because she's gets emotionally attached to anything and everything we do. It becomes literally a part of her. Um, I'm more of like, okay, just how do we move on to the next step? But what happened at Central, it was an ongoing issue for over a year. And when it finally became to that point to where it was just like, that's it, like there's no fixing it. They have to like cut the ground open from the inside of the building all the way to the alley to
Wow.
fix it. I mean, we couldn't afford to pay for it, and it wasn't our building.
Mm.
So when we contacted the landlords, they were like, "Well, you fix it. You're the ones making money there." So it became into this big old fight, and we waited. We were literally closed for 6 months before we said, "That's it. We're taking out all our stuff," and we're
6 months.
yeah. The plumbing went out in January, and we were out by I want to say July. We were out of the building, and it was really. Of course, Francis took it very emotionally. It was really bad, and me, it was in business. I feel that I think one thing people I don't know if people go through things like I do, but to me the mistake I made when I first started was I worried too much about what people were going to think or say.
Mm.
So I always had this fear of a failure, not because I failed, but because what were people going to say. So instead of dealing with things sooner, I was just trying to keep it going.
Ah.
So I could have when we were trying to get that plumbing fixed for over a year.
Right.
So instead of me being a year ago, hey, if you don't have this fixed next month, I'm out of here. Instead, I would have to I lost events because like all the plumbing would all of a sudden just back up
Ugh.
everywhere in the kitchen. So
Ugh.
once plumbing backs up,
It's
everybody out
over.
of the building. You
Yeah.
have to close. And then we were losing money, we were doing all these things. And my only focus was, I can't fail. Like I can't people can't know that we had to close. It was just I worried too much about what people were thinking about us versus what's the best step to take next. And I feel like I've learned that now instead of, prolonging things. I'm like, okay, this is not working. We need to stop and let's do something else. We gotta change. You gotta change what you're doing at that moment versus waiting a whole year the way we did. And it just put us in a hole. So, again, history. Looking back, had I done something about it then, we'd be in a better position today. But sometimes you just have to live and learn. And it was, more than anything, it was a real emotional situation because we had fought so hard to get to where we were at, and you put in all your money, all your effort, all your time. We had little kids, and I'm, living at that place, not spending no time with them. So then you have guilt of what you're not spending with your family and what you're not doing, and then you're doing all this, and then at the end it just falls apart anyways. So you're like, shoot, like I should have done something different. So it was a really, really hard lesson, and but I feel like they say, hey, it didn't kill us, just made us stronger. And now when things happen, and I speak with friends, she's like, yeah, she goes, it's fine. Remember, I thought like our world had ended when Central closed. Yeah, and she
Sure.
goes, and but I tell her I feel that everything that has happened to us, because we've had a lot of things happen to us, with the pandemic and everything that's gotten us to this point. And like I tell her, you know what? Without those steps, we wouldn't be right here. You really can't be mad at that because that's how every time we have to, move from one thing to the next, it always seems to land us in a better place. So all we can do is keep moving forward.
When we come back, we're going to be talking about holding on to staff. This is a high topic issue for a lot of business owners since COVID, and we'll talk more about that when we come right back. The reason we're talking with Chef Lino is because of a Visioneer question that came from a Visioneer just like you. We had a Visioneer that wanted to find out, how do I go through and adjust my menu to adjust all these different things that are going on in my business and make it all work? So if you've got a question, you've got thoughts, something you'd like to learn about here on Small Business Celebration, reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And who knows, maybe your question will appear here on Small Business Celebration. So reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram today. I'm here with Chef Lino Gonzalez, the owner of Chef Lino Creates, and our Visioneer question comes from Trista, who asks, since COVID, hanging on to staff has been an issue. How have your managers and your management style been key to holding on to employees?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Okay.
So it's always in the restaurant business. It's a high turnover.
All right.
It's always high turnover.
And why is that?
Because a lot of the positions is temporary. It's like a step for people, they're making money while they're going to college, doing other things just to get them where they're trying to go.
Right.
It's not really their career of choice. So it makes it hard to retain those. Now, when you have an excellent chef or manager, most of those people are kind of how I used to be. They have their own drive, their own ideas. They want to have their own restaurant. They want to have their own kitchen. So
Right.
it makes it really difficult. We have one specific employee that's been with us for a really long time. And I think most importantly, what I see in this person is that they believe in what we're doing. They
believe in the
they
vision.
share in our vision.
Right.
And I think they get that within them that they want to see it, come to life, and they're helping and they're in every step of the way growing with us.
Right.
As we grow. So, and you got to give them incentives. You got to give them also a reason to be with you.
What kind of incentives do you give them?
Well, I mean, the different things. The number one thing is pay. I mean, you got to make sure that they're living comfortably, and as you're making more money, they have to make more money with you.
Right.
Because I mean, number one, no matter what else you give them, we're all doing this for the same thing. We want to support our family, spend time with our family, and hey, it all takes money.
When you're not here, what do you do? What do you do for fun?
People always ask me that, and also they always ask me, like, what do you eat?
Right.
Right. And for fun, I mean, honestly, I dedicate any extra time I have away from here to my family.
Right.
I feel I don't spend enough time with my kids. So we try to, do barbecues together. We'll, take them to the park, take them to, to go have fun wherever they want to go, to a movie. And, myself personally, again, I go back to, if I have chance to work on cars, I still try to do my own oil changes and, things like that, just because, it's what I enjoy to do. Just those simple things.
You have to relax at some point.
I try. And I get in trouble for this all the time. Me and Francis will sit down, try to watch a movie, and I say, let's just be lazy today. We're just gonna lay around the house, and just hang out. 4 or 5 rolls around, I'll be just in the worst mood, and she'll be like, "What's the matter?" I'm just like, "We just didn't do anything productive today. I feel like, we didn't get nothing out of the day." And she'll be like, "Can you just relax for a second?" Because my mind will start turning on things I could have been over here doing. Just there's always in this business. You can't ever have a kitchen and somebody tell you there's nothing to do.
Right.
Like if you walk in and your employees are just standing there like, "Oh, well, there's nothing to do. We did everything." No, there's in the kitchen, you'll never finish.
Did you learn this from your father?
Yes. Yeah, working with my dad was a really, really tough school.
How so?
So when I started, my dad was always, he's, your typical Hispanic man, Mexican man, very, very ornery, very serious, very to the point. And when I started working for him at his restaurant, it was a rude awakening. I mean, I never really had a big relationship with him because he was always at work.
Right.
He was always at work, which is a funny story. The way we ended up in Bakersfield was the people that own Don Pepe's, when they first opened here in town,
Hmm.
my dad worked for her parents in LA, and she
Ah,
was struggling with help, training help.
right.
So her mom sent my dad here to help her train her staff. And
Ah,
my dad, fell in love with Bakersfield. It was like 1982, I want to say,
right.
when he first came. And he's like, he loved it. And the daughter was like, well, if you like it here, I'll help you. I'll pay to get you and your family moved over here. And that's how we ended up in Bakersfield. So when my dad acquired that restaurant from her and I went to go work for my dad, it was something I had never experienced because my dad was never, hey, I need you to do this. Can you do it? Let me show you. He'd just be like, do it.
Just
And
do it.
just
Yeah.
do it. And if you weren't doing it fast enough, if you weren't doing it right, it was like just he was never physically abusive, but he was very verbally abusive. Like with, he would curse, he'd everything was yell, yell. And so I was always, trying to do my best, to not get yelled at. I remember one story one day, we're on the line. I'm like 11 years old and I'm helping him, cook on the line and I'm trying to hurry and I burned myself, putting the tortillas in the
Oh
fire to make
no.
enchiladas and I'm trying to hurry and I'm like, and he's like, what are you doing? Like he just started screaming at me. And that day I'm 11 years old. I lost it.
Right.
I started like tearing up.
Right.
And he goes, you're crying? Goes, you're gonna cry? He's like, I don't want to see you here ever. Goes, get the hell out of here. Goes, get the hell out of my kitchen. Go home. So I'm like, okay, I'm taking off my apron, walking out. He's like, where the hell are you going? Get back in here. I'm like, so that sums it up how life was working with him. And he was just, and I want to be that way with my kids, but at some point, like I feel he was a little too far to one side. I try to be with them in that way because even with school, like if I would get like an award for straight A's, and then I'd come home with my little paper because nobody would ever go to the school while I was getting an award because everybody was always working.
Right.
So I'd come home and be like, look, and he'd be like, what's that? I'm like, oh, I got straight A's or whatever. He'd be like, okay, what are you gonna do with that? I'm like, I don't know. He goes, you need to hurry up. We're gonna go. You need to start washing some dishes. And
Right.
it was with him, nothing was ever enough. But that's what drove me to try harder. Like,
Right.
I was always trying to please this unpleasable person. And I was just, I'm gonna make him happy. And so
And then he had three businesses.
yeah, he had a restaurant in Shafter.
Right.
And then right next door to his restaurant here on Columbus, he had a jewelry store.
And all three failed.
Failed by his hand. Yeah.
How did that change the way that you approach and do business now?
Well, I didn't back then. I really didn't understand what happened to him again until I look back and then I know what he did, what caused everything to fall apart. But the main thing that I took from that was when he lost his business and I went to go do my own thing. I think that's what kind of made me resent and like dislike the whole restaurant industry.
Mm.
So when I walked up, because then he got up and he moved back to LA, and by then I was already 18, so I stayed here and started looking for work, and I just felt like that was a miserable 8 years of my life, just working with him. He always told me this dream, oh, because when I started messing up in high school, he was like, perfect, come to work full time.
Right.
Yeah, he's like, don't worry, this will all be yours. You're already set,
Right.
So when it all fell apart and I didn't do great in school, I was like, well, I'm done with restaurants. I'm never doing that again. I'm gonna
What
do
changed?
probably Francis. I always had a talent for it. I never felt the passion for it until I started doing it with her. Because even when I was at Cafe Meta, I I enjoyed it there because I was learning so many new things. I was experiencing new things, learning new foods, So it got my interest going in it again. But the whole time I was there, I was always looking for my out. Even while I was there working, for a little while I was there, I had already started a shuttle service.
Right.
And that totally fell apart because I was too busy.
Right.
I didn't have enough support for my partner then to make that work. And we were also having kids at that point. So, but I was always looking for a way out. Even though that was going great, I was just could never never embrace it.
Right.
Never embrace it, and until
you found the right partner.
yeah, until I found the right person, and she's just always my cheerleader. So it's always good to have that support. People always say don't work with your spouse. And I understand why they say that.
Right.
Because
from the first restaurant,
yeah,
you understand.
yeah, but especially with your spouse, because you go home and I'll be here and she'll be in her office and she goes home. So and I'm still finishing the catering and I get home, she still has 100 things to talk to me about that she was dealing with all day. And I'm just getting home wanting to just
sleep,
lay down, eat a bowl of cereal, which goes back to food. Like most of the time, no, I love her cooking. And she says, I'm a terrible cook, but I just love that she's, making me a meal of her own. So I love when she cooks for me. And as we get busier, it's harder and harder for us, to do food at home because we're just always working. And
right.
So, but yeah, I think she was the number one factor that helped me really embrace what I'm good at,
What makes you wake up every morning and open your business?
I mean, besides the normal things, right? I mean, besides the normal things, because you need money, because you want to take care of your family, besides all those things, at one point in my life, I started, you get to a point where, it's just so easy to complain, right?
Right.
You can always just complain about everything. And, me and her have been talking to each other a lot about that. And instead of just like complaining, because sometimes we get up to have our coffee together and, discuss our day before it starts. And
right.
it would just be complain. And by the time I'd walk out the door, I would feel like, oh, like I don't even want to even start this day. So,
right.
I just started, getting a different perspective on life and saying, hey, you know what? I got another opportunity to get up and, and go to work again. And, and to me, that is more valuable than anything, just the ability that I can actually, get up and come do something that I enjoy, come build, my business and do it, next to the person I love most in this world, it's just a blessing. So that alone is good enough, to just get up and go.
Chef Lino, this has been a real privilege. Thank you for joining us here on Small Business Celebration.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here.
And if Visionaries want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Well, they can reach us at cheflinocreates.com or at info@cheflinocreates, or just, follow us on social media.
And phone number?
So our phone number is 661-885-8006.
Perfect.
And you know what? Dang cell phones have made us so lazy. I remember as a kid, I knew like 300 phone numbers in my head. Hey, if I get stuck in the wilderness, I won't be able to call nobody. I have nobody's number.
I'm the same way. I get asked for my wife's number all the time, and I have to go through my contacts. What is my wife's number? Yeah, exactly. So, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll be right back with my final thought. The winter season is rapidly approaching, but are the tires on your car or truck ready for wet weather? Bakersfield's best tire store, Cleroux Tire, has been serving families like yours for 80 years and installs and services the tires your family depends on when the wet weather comes. Give Cleroux Tire a call at 661-324-6069 and ask them about what tire works best for you and your budget. Call Cleroux Tire at 661-324-6069 or visit them at 530 East 21st Street in Bakersfield or at ClerouxTire.com today. The wet winter weather is rapidly approaching. Call Cleroux Tire at 661-324-6069 today. More than getting through it. Recently, Small Business Celebration celebrated our third annual Small Business Celebration Family Reunion. And it's an exclusive event that's only open to former guests of Small Business Celebration. And the reason I started the event is there's the old adage, well, everybody knows everybody. And yeah, that's not the case at all. And it's also an event for them to get together and be around like-minded individuals. And one of the things that I noticed this past evening is that there were several business owners there, several visionaries. They were going through some really difficult times, both personally and professionally and otherwise. But one of the things that I noticed is that you'd never guess it, by looking at them. You'd never guess it by listening to them. Why? Because even though they were going through all these difficult times, all these difficult challenges, it's those difficult times and challenges that led them there to the event, to be around other like-minded visionaries and be part of their community. So that tomorrow, when they go back and they have those difficult times and those difficult struggles that they have to go through, they can do more than just get through it. They have community. I hope you enjoyed our conversation this week with Chef Lino, and I hope you learned something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business. And we'll see you here again next week when we celebrate another small business making a big breakthrough. Why did the chef suddenly stop cooking?
Because I just wanted to experiment with.
Or, yes, true. Or he just ran out of time.
Okay.
But a bunch, parsley sage.
Okay, got it.
How many pastry chefs does it take to make a pie?
One.
All this time I thought it took 3.145.
Just one.
Sounds good. Shall we start?
Let's do it.
Okay.